Hello everyone, today we'll be talking about parameters in Tableau. These are the list of topics or items which we'll be covering today in parameters. We will first understand what is parameter in Tableau. We'll understand how parameter is different from a filter, and then we'll understand few implementation of parameter like parameters, how it is used in filters, finding top n parameters, dynamic dimension parameter and dynamic measure parameter. So let's start by understanding the first point, which is parameter in Tableau. So what is parameter in Tableau? So going with the definition, a parameter in Tableau are the containers of values used to calculate and dynamically enter the values that are otherwise not present in the original dataset. We can add condition and select range of values for which you want to create a parameter. After that, you can incorporate these values into reports and dashboard and see the effect on different visualization. So basically parameter are like temporary variable. We manually give some values and based on the values we do computation. So looking into these theoretical definition, it might be confusing and little complex to understand on first what a parameter is, but later in the video when we'll do implementation of parameter, then it will be really easy to understand and then you can easily relate with this theoretical definition. What does it mean? So the third point is parameter have almost the same UI option as filter, but obviously parameter is not similar as filter. Only the UI options are similar. Parameter are single valued, whereas filters are single plus multiple selection values. Parameter are global, so affect the calculation for all data source and a connection in the workbook. Now, parameters are useful when you want to add interactivity and flexibility to a report or to experiment with what if scenarios. Now, let's go to the second slide where we will understand how a parameter is different from a filter. So now here we will understand what is the difference between a parameter and a filter. So the first point is the purpose. So what is the purpose of creating a parameter and what is the purpose of creating a filter? So when we create a parameter in our report and dashboard, the purpose is to have interactivity with the report, to make it more dynamic, to make it more user friendly. Whereas when we create a filter, it narrow down our data. We can show less data, more data according to the requirement. The second point is dependency on data source. So parameter is independent on data source, whereas the filter is dependent. Then the third point is scope or level. So when we create a parameter, what is the scope? And when we create a filter, what is the scope? So when we create a parameter, it is global and applies to the entire workbook. But when we create a filter, it is restricted to that particular sheet itself. But in filters, we have option where we can apply the filter to all the worksheet and at the data source level as well. Now, coming to the calculated fields. So when we create a calculated field, we have option like we can use parameter in our calculation. But whereas for filter, we cannot do that. Now the second last point is multi-select. So as I said previously that parameter is a single select value and filter is single select and multiple select. So as parameter is single select, we will have option to type in slider option, radio button will be there. Now the last point is about action. So parameter can be used in action, but filter cannot be used in actions. Now, as we have understood the difference between parameter and filter, we will move to Tableau for the implementation of parameter and understand how it works. So first we will understand the third point, which is parameter in filter. So let's go to Tableau and do the implementation of it. So I have connected to Tableau here and you can see I have connected to sample superstore data. I have taken column product ID, which is a dimension, and sum of sales, which is a measure. And in the right hand side you can see I have a parameter, top and parameter, where I have multiple drop down options, which is single select. I have top 5, top 10, top 15, top 20. So if I select top 5, the top 5 sum of sales by product ID will be shown. If I select top 10, then I'll get top 10 product ID by sum of sales. So this one I have already implemented it, but for understanding, we will create a new sheet and we will do this once again to understand. So let's go to a new sheet. So now take the dimension. I'll take the product ID column. Then measure, I can select any measure. I'll select sum of sales. I'll put it in the text mark. So it will give me all the values. Now I have product ID and I have sum of sales. So it will give me all sum of sales. Now I want to find the top 10, top 5 or whatever. It should be dynamic. So suppose if I put the product ID in the filter shelf, I'll get the filter options, product ID options, wherein it will be general, wildcard, condition, and top. So if we go to the top option and the second option from here by field, so if you see, I have the top and the number I can put in here and sum of sales. So by default, it is sum of sales. If I click here, I'll get the other aggregation if I want to use any. Now, if I select top 10, I will do a apply. It will filter down my data. So now you can see, right, I have just kept the filter product ID in the filter. I did a top 10 and my data got filtered. So with filter also we can do it. Now if I don't want top 10, if I want something else, then again I have to go back. I have to go to the top and I have to change it from here. Top 5 suppose. So I'll get the top 5. So with filter I can do it like whichever number I want, I can change it and it will filter out the data, but it is not dynamic. I have to go back again and I have to do it, and it is not dynamic. It is something which is static. So to make it dynamic we have to go with the parameter option. So that's where that is also one of the example of filter and a parameter. So if I go to the product ID, so one way of creating a parameter from a filter is if I go to the product ID again, if I do an edit filter, if I go to the top option again, and in here, if I click the drop down, I have an option to create a new parameter from the filter itself. So if I click here, the parameter window get open. Let's name it like top and parameter. Let the current value be 5. So you can see, right, the range is selected. Minimum and maximum is the range. So by default minimum is 1, maximum is 100. We can change it if we want 10, if you want 1000, whatever. There is also an option for step size. So if we click on the step size, it get enabled, and here we can choose the step size whatever we want, 1 2 3 4 whatever. So it means suppose if I selected step size 5, then what it will do is between 1 to 100 it will give a gap of 5 and then show the data like 5, 10, 15. I can do a selection of it, but we will not do a step size. Now we will uncheck it and we will click OK. So already exists, so let's give a dot here to distinguish. So apply. Okay. Now you see top and parameter is created. Now let's do a show parameter. So in the right hand side, I will get the parameter option. So this is by default coming as a slider option. I can change it from 1 to 100, whatever it is. So if I select 6, it will change to 6. Now what other option we have? We have slider and we have type in option. So if I select type in option, it will come like this. So if I type 10 here, my data will be filtered with top 10 product IDs with respective to sum of sales. Now we can also do a drop down as I showed in the previous example, like top 5, top 10, top 20. So how this can be implemented? So for this we have to go back to our parameter once again. We have to do an edit parameter, and here you see, right, we have three options. We have all, list, and range. So now range is selected. So when we select a range, we are getting only two options, which is the slider and the type in. So when we select a list, we will get that drop down option. So now let's type what naming convention, what are the numbers which we want. So let's say I want top 5, I want top 10, I want top 15, I want top 25. So I'll give a naming convention as top 5, top 10, top 15, and top 25. Okay, we'll do OK. So we'll see that our parameter will change. When we go to this particular drop down, we will have two more option of single value list and a compact list. So if I select single value list, it will give me the radio buttons. If I select the other option, which is the compact list, it will give me something like this, in which I can do a selection. So if I select top 5, it will give me the top 5 sum of sales as per the product ID. If I select top 10, it will give me top 10. So you see, right, with parameter, how a report can be made a dynamic in a dynamic way, and it will be more interactive. So suppose if I don't want this particular table to be in this tabular form, then we can just simply go to the show me option. We can go to this bar and we will get a bar chart. We can arrange it in ascending or descending order to make it look more neat. And then if we want to add labels, then we can add sum of sales in the label. So we'll get the label itself. So till now we have understood the implementation of parameter from a filter, like how we can create a parameter from the filter itself, and how we can create a parameter for top n parameters by taking numbers like 5, 10, 15, and make our dashboard more interactive and user friendly. Now let's move to the next part, which is creating a parameter by dynamic measure and dynamic dimension measure and dimension parameters. So I've already created a sheet, so I'll just walk you through this. So this is dynamic dimension sheet, where in the right hand side I have the dynamic dimension parameter, where I have the category, region, and segment column. These are the dimension column. So these three I have taken. So if I select the category, my column options will be changing to category, technology, office supplies, and furniture. Similarly, when I select region, it will be west, east, south, and central. So my dimension is changing dynamically by the help of the parameter which I have created. Now the measure is sum of profit. So the profit will be same, only one measure I'll be able to see. Now what if I want to change the measure as well? So in that case, we will create a another parameter which will be a dynamic measure parameter. So let's see how that looks like. So now this is the same chart. This is the same parameter from the previous sheet, and now this is a new parameter for a dynamic measure. So earlier only one measure was there, which was profit. Now I have, like, we can add multiple, but for now I have three measures. I have profit, sales, and quantity. Now suppose, like, my now in this particular chart, the dimension and measure both are dynamic, and both will change according to the user requirement. Suppose if I want to see the category, but I want to see the category not based on the profit, I want to see the category based on the sales. So I'll select sales. So it will show the sales data based on the category. So this is the difference between a dynamic dimension and a dynamic measure. Now let's create a new sheet and get to know it from scratch, how we can create a dynamic dimension and a dynamic measure. So I'll go to a new sheet. So let's take profit. Let's create first the dynamic dimension. Okay, let's take a three dimension column. Let's take region. Let's take segment. Let's take subcategory. Okay, now you see, right, in this particular sheet, I have region, segment, and subcategory, and it is showing data according to the sum of profit. So by looking into this, it's little bit difficult to understand which value is for which column. So we have to go through and we have to dig in and then we have to understand. So for that, to make it easy and simple, we will create a parameter. In that, we will be able to select either a region column, segment column, or the subcategory column, and we can see the profit based on that. So we will create a parameter. So let's name it dynamic dimension parameter. Okay, let's, it should be string. It will be a list. So I want the region, segment, and subcategory. Okay, now make it okay. Now make it just a show filter. I mean show parameter. So I have got this option. I got region, I got segment, I got subcategory. So suppose if I select region or anything, it won't change anything because I have just created a parameter by just giving passing on values onto it, but I have not linked the actual column with the parameter. So to link that, we have to create a calculated field wherein we will be linking the parameter with the column so that it will work accordingly. So we'll write a case statement. Case the parameter, this one. So when the parameter value is region, then it should show me region column. When parameter value is segment, it should show me segment column. Similarly, when the parameter value is subcategory, then it will be subcategory, and we will end this. Okay, we will name it dimension. Okay, apply. Now, instead of these three columns which we have used, we just have to use one column now, that is the dynamic dimension, and we'll be able to see the result. So I have selected, I have kept the dynamic dimension and I have segment selected. So you see, right, this is the column which is for segment and it is consumer corporate. So these values are coming. Now if I select region, Then in my dynamic dimension, I will get the central, east, south, those values. So just remove these three columns which are not required. Okay, so now I have three dimension, region, segment, and subcategory, and we are getting the sum of profit according to that. So if I select region, I will get the region values and accordingly the sum of profit. Okay, now to make it look much better, let's choose a bar graph. Let's arrange it and then we can add the label. Sorry, profit. Okay, so you can see right how convenient it is to use a parameter to get our required dimension. Now here we see that our dimensions are changing according to the requirement, but the measure is still the same. So how we can make the measure also dynamic one and user can select it. So for that we have to do the same process, which is creating a parameter first. So it will be dynamic measure parameter. We will select a string, we will select list, and then we will list down which are the measures which we want. We want profit, we want sales, let's suppose we want quantity. So for now, these three which we want. So these are just a naming convention, whatever name we can give. The actual thing is in the calculation which we will do. So let's do a show parameter. Now we have to link this particular parameter with the calculation. So let's create the calculation dynamic measure. Now case dynamic measure parameter. So when the text value is profit, then it should show me the profit column. When the text value is sales, it should show me sales. When it's quantity, it should show me the quantity. Okay, then we'll end this. Hmm, what's the error? Logical dynamic measure. Okay, dynamic measure calculation. So now as we have the dynamic measure calculation ready, so we will replace the profit with the dynamic measure. So let's do that. We'll put here also, and we will remove the profit which we have kept before. So let's change the dimension to segment, and let's change it to profit, and let's order it. So we see right how a dynamic measure and with the help of dynamic dimension we are able to make our dashboard more interactive and it's more user friendly. So to summarize on the list of topics, what we have covered in this video are: we have understood what is a parameter in Tableau. We have understood the difference between a parameter and a filter. We have seen how we can create a parameter from a filter itself and creating top and parameters. Then we have understood the difference and implementation of dynamic dimension and dynamic measure, and how with implementing parameters in our reports and dashboards it can be more user friendly, more interactive and more dynamic. So I hope this video helped you in understand what a parameter is.